What is up everyone, FPL Harry here and welcome back to another video. FPL planning for the new season is in full swing, so today I'm going to talk you through my top 5 tips for you to take in planning game week 1 and throughout the season. So that's right, I'm going to take you through my top 5 tips for the season, and we're going to start off with tip number 1. When you're picking your game week 1 team, it's very easy to be drawn in focusing on the fixture that a team has in game week 1, potentially game week 1 and 2, and to completely lose sight of fixtures further down the line. Now, yes, we have free transfers that we can use on our team in order to sort of make changes, bring in players that have nice fixtures and sell players that have difficult fixtures. However, we only get 1 transfer a week. You don't want to be getting into the position where you're taking -4s every week or every other week in order to change players around, because there are teams in your sort of starting 11 that don't have nice fixtures. For example, if we look at Leicester here, they have a really nice fixture in game week 1 at home to Brentford. However, they then play Arsenal, Chelsea and Manchester United in 3 of the next 4 fixtures after that. So there'll be people who think, oh, I'm going to go own Maddison, I'm going to go and own Vardy, Schmeichel, these type of players, and then after game week 1 I'll sell them and I'll look to buy someone else, or they'll keep them in their team because they don't want to use extra transfers, and they'll end up taking hits or just playing them in games where they don't really plan on scoring any points. So look at teams that potentially have sort of a nicer run of fixtures over the sort of short term. I tend to look 5 or 6 game weeks in advance. I tend to look at that sort of as a period of games. So if we look at Chelsea, for example, so although they have a difficult fixture in game week 2, I do think that they have a nice opening run that you could go and sort of choose. So again, don't be focused on the very short term in terms of your fixtures. Look for that sort of medium term. You can rotate players if they do have a bad fixture. Have players on your bench that can come in if there is a difficult fixture. However, again, a lot of people make mistakes. They score well in game week 1 and they think their team is great, but come game week 3 or 4, their team is in pieces because they focus on the very short term. It is a 38 game week season. You don't need to score well every single week in order to get a good overall rank at the end of the season. Next up, our tip number 2 goes along with this, is don't book in transfers. Again, it's very easy to look at those fixture swings and think, after the first game week where Son plays Southampton at home, I'm going to move to Kevin De Bruyne, who then has Bournemouth at home in game week 2. Come game week 3, I'm going to start with Callum Wilson. I'm going to move him to Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who plays Nottingham Forest at home in game week 3. Again, Maddison to Kulusevski further down the line. These are sort of things that a lot of beginners to the game will start doing when they're making their first team. This is a really big error in my opinion. The reason for this is because you don't want to be taking hits. You will have transfers that you need to make elsewhere in your team. You might look at your team game week 1 and think, this is absolutely perfect. I've got the brilliant 15. I'm going to score so many points. I'm not going to need to change it at all each week. That is not going to be the case. There will be at least 1 transfer after game week 1 that you're going to want to make. Even if there isn't, rolling a transfer into game week 2 is such a beneficial sort of strategy and tactic. Of course, you can roll 1 transfer. You can't roll more than 1, but rolling 1 into game week 2 is so beneficial. So not having to play 1 in game week 1 is a great strategy. It allows you to plan, be a bit more flexible when you have a bit more information after the first 2 game weeks of the season. So don't book in transfers. 1 booked in transfer for the first 5 game weeks is my limit. I don't want to do that. Yes, I might fill a team up with players I'm really happy with, but I know that I will make mistakes. I know I'm not a perfect FPL manager, and in those opening weeks there will be things I need to move from. Someone might get injured, someone might get suspended, there might be a bandwagon for a cheap player that I need to go and jump on, and if I have transfers booked in every week, again, that's -4s that I'll be needing to take every week, and that is not what we want to do early in the season in particular. So don't plan too far in advance and book those transfers in. Next up, try and build a strong squad. So you've got 2 teams here, one which I think is a nicely well-balanced squad, what you've got on the right-hand side, and on the left-hand side is a team that, although looks really nice on paper, it's got Salah, it's got Son, it's got Haaland, it's not well-balanced enough. You might think that those 3 premiums are going to score enough points, so you don't need a balanced squad. However, you're playing Pereira, sort of a cheap 4.5 midfield every week. You're playing your 4.5 defenders every week, and you don't really have any strength on the bench as well to come in case there is an injury. However, the team on the right-hand side, although it doesn't have Son, it has Luis Diaz in, it has Kulusevski in, it has Martinelli, Neto. It's got a full sort of premium defense as well. That team on the right is much more well balanced. It has a strong bench there as well. And over sort of 1 week, yes, you might get Salah, Son, Haaland all scoring, but over sort of a number of game weeks, the team on the right that you're looking at is much more set up to sort of deal with sort of rotation when a player has a difficult fixture. If someone in your starting 11 gets benched and doesn't come on, again, it's much more well placed to deal with that than the team that you have on the left-hand side. So again, yes, it's great. I think, oh, I can have all my favourite players, but don't just look into that and think, yes, that's going to work. You need to have points coming in from all of your 11 if you're going to have a successful FPL season. So again, don't be blinkered by just those, your favourite players, those premium assets, as easy as it might seem to do. Next up, tip number 4, moving on now, is be aware of differentials and new signings as well. So I picked out a few positions here. We start sort of forward. We've got Kane, Vardy, Haaland all coming in sort of similar price points. You've got Kane, who's the sort of proven asset that we've got. You've got Vardy coming in as that sort of big differential, and then you've got Haaland coming in as that sort of new signing. In midfield, again, you've got Diaz coming in as that sort of high-owned asset. Bowen will be a big differential, and then Vieira at Arsenal is a bit of a new signing and unknown. And we've got a similar situation in defence with Trent, Tierney and Perisic. Again, there's nothing wrong with going with players from each of these 3 columns. However, you need to understand that the players in the column on the left are likely to be very highly owned and more highly owned than maybe the players particularly in the middle. Unproven players in the Premier League often don't hit the ground running. Now, I do currently have Perisic and Haaland in my draft at the moment, but you have to look at previous seasons and think new signings to the league often end up not hitting the ground running as fast as we expect them to. What I'm meaning by this point and what you should take away from it is look at those proven FPL assets. Don't take too many punts going into the start of the season. If you lose ground early on the season because you are taking too many punts, it is much more difficult to make up that ground than if you sort of try and take punts later on in the season. I tried to start my seasons very steady, sort of be in and around the pack, and then make real ground on later in the season when I do planning really well. Again, above me you can see my ranks in the previous seasons, and hopefully that shows that it has paid off, and a few of these tips that you should really take into the start of the season. So I really like some of those proven assets. Look at the ownership of players. Don't be scared of owning high owned players, especially at the start of the season, because it can be damaging if you don't go with them. The final piece of advice that I've got is to avoid rotation-prone players. Again, it might seem like an obvious trick, but I'm seeing a lot of talk already at the start of the season about players like Mahrez. Martinelli was in my first draft, and I've since taken him out, and players like Kai Havertz as well. You've got Mahrez, who is an absolutely fantastic asset on his day and when he plays. And I'm seeing a lot of people say Bowen's overpriced. However, if you look at Mahrez, yes, when he plays, he's going to be a great asset. He's going to score goals. He's going to get assists for Manchester City. However, he only plays every second game for them. So he has to score 10 points every second game for it to really be worthwhile. Whereas if Bowen scores 5 points and ticks along like he did last season, he's going to be just as good, if not a better FPL asset than Mahrez at a very similar price, because you don't have to worry about when the team sheet comes out scrolling up and down thinking, is he playing, is he not? You know, if you ever look to captain the player, you're not going to have that worry about, is he going to start, is he going to get any minutes, is he going to come on for a 1 point cameo and block those points on my bench, which I know the likes of Foden, Mahrez will do, Grealish will do if you have them as those Manchester City midfielders. Elsewhere, again, we've looked at Martinelli. They're signed Jesus. They're going to have Nketiah. They've got Odegaard. They've got Smith Rowe. They've got Saka. They've got so many midfielders to choose from. Yet Martinelli seems one of the most owned players in the game at the moment. Yes, he had great patches to last season, but if you compare him to a player like Neto, who I think is an absolutely fabulous pick at the moment, Neto's going to play pretty much every game for Wolves. Yes, he might get a couple of substitutions, but he's their most important attacker alongside Jimenez coming back from injury. So Martinelli, yes, again, he might play and be really explosive. He's on set pieces. Arsenal might score some more goals than Wolves do. However, if he doesn't play every week, all of that great stuff is just not there for him. You know what will happen is he'll get rotated in the fixture that you want him to. You know, at home to Bournemouth, at home to a newly promoted side, you won't have Martinelli, whereas you know Neto's going to be there in the starting lineup every single week. And it's a similar story up front as well. If you look at Havertz, a great pick. You think you can get the Chelsea starting striker for 8 million now that Lukaku's gone, but he's not going to play every week. There will be others. If Sterling comes in, whether they play Werner through the middle, whether they find something else, then you've got Callum Wilson, who's going to play every single game for a Newcastle team who looks so much better. It's actually 0.5 cheaper, but I'm I'm seeing a lot of talk for the likes of Havertz, the likes of Jota, the likes of Nunez coming in at Liverpool. Again, just be cautious of these players who are very exciting, are great footballers in real life, probably better footballers than their sort of more nailed counterparts, but are not going to score nearly as many points because they just don't play every week, especially when the likes of the Champions League fixtures, Europa League fixtures start and all that fixture congestion comes in. So just to round that off, just because they're great players in real life does not make them great players in FPL. An FPL pick is very different to what you mean from a top FPL asset. We get this from defensive midfielders as well, but even from attacking players, you've got to consider how often they're actually going to get on the pitch. They're great picks when they're on the pitch, but you don't want that headache every week, particularly with the 5-sub rule about players not starting and coming on for 1-point cameo. So those are 5 tips that I think you should take into this season of FPL, particularly picking your game week 1 side as well. Let me know the questions about these tips. Let me know any thoughts about your current drafts as well in the comment section down below. Thank you very much for watching. If you haven't already, make sure you've liked the video, subscribe to the channel. It is much appreciated as we go through preseason, aiming for 25,000 subscribers by the start of the season, which is a big ask, but anything you can do to help me get there would be massively appreciated. Join the prize league as well. The code is above me. Thank you all for watching, and I'll be back again very soon.